So what do you say we spend a little time in the garden today? All right. Today we're going to the grocery store, but not the one you drive to, the one in your backyard. Got a lot of good stuff we need to harvest from our cool weather plantings. They've taken a little longer than they normally take to mature because down here in South Georgia we've had a cooler than normal winter. Usually we just get kind of spells of cold weather, and then we'll get a lot of days in the 60s and even low 70s this time of year, but it has kind of stayed cool when we've been in the 50s during the day and down in the 30s at night. Seems like for the last couple of weeks, and it looks like we're going to be kind of with those same temperatures for the next couple of weeks. So it being cooler than normal, the maturity dates are a little longer. They're always a little longer when we overwinter things as opposed to growing them in the spring, but with a cooler than normal winter they have taken a little longer. Usually in previous years I would have already harvested most of this stuff before the new year hit, but we're a little behind because the weather set us back a little bit, but not a big deal. We're still going to get some nice harvests today. So let's take a look at our no-till plot and see how some things are going here, and then we'll pick some veggies. So in our no-till plot here, we've got all kind of cool weather stuff planted right now, appropriate for this time of year. And this kind of blank spot, which has got some stuff coming up, I'll zoom in and show you in just a second, is where we had some lettuce. And on a previous video we came in here and planted a row of beets and a row of spinach. After we planted that, we got some rain. We knew we were getting some rain, that's why we planted when we did, but we got a lot of rain. You can see a little bit of a washout there, so our germination is going to be okay, but not quite as good as we would have wanted it to be. But we've got some things coming up. These beets have taken a while to come up with this cool weather, but you can see them right there, those little red specks. So they are coming up, they have germinated. And my buddy Abram helped me. We planted them pretty thick. We may have to thin these out a little bit, but they are coming up. Our spinach, which likes a little cooler soil to germinate, came up a little faster than the beets, and it's coming along there. We planted that pretty thick as well. Abram just kind of grabbed a handful and threw it down there, but get some good spinach germination, and hopefully we get a nice full row of spinach eventually as it germinates. We got our red cabbage here, our red jewel cabbage, which is last to the party as far as forming the heads, and we've got one here starting to make an okay size head, close to being harvestable there. But these seem to be later maturing than the green varieties. On that previous video we compared these 4 varieties of cabbage, the early Dutch, Stonehead, Bobcat, and Cheers. We're going to be picking some of those Cheers cabbages and some of those Bobcat cabbages today. We've got our broccoli trials over here with 3 different varieties: Green Magic, Emerald Crown, and Godzilla. Going to be getting some of that today. Got our cauliflower here, and some of that is ready to harvest. Going to be gathering some of that today, and we'll look at the difference between some of those varieties. And we got some lettuce here on the end, this Braveheart romaine, which some of it has gotten bit by the cold. Still got some harvestable heads there. Our deer tongue lettuce didn't really like the freezes a whole lot. You can see there a lot of it bit the dust, so that may be a variety we'll want to grow more in the spring than trying to grow it through the middle of winter. So let's start off by getting some of these Cheers cabbages right here. And as of last year, this was my favorite variety, and this year, comparing it to 3 other varieties, the early Dutch, Stonehead, and Bobcat, it's still my favorite variety. I think it makes the biggest heads of cabbage. This is more of a commercial variety. It makes really good sized cabbages, and they're pretty daggum tasty as well. Now, this is not the most early variety. Those other ones will produce faster, but these right here will end up making bigger heads. Now, this head right here is not super big, and we went over that in our previous video out here about how we didn't get enough fertilizer to these guys, and that's why we didn't make super big heads like we did last year. But these are not too bad. Nice heads of cabbage. We've been eating about 1 or 2 of these heads at a time, cutting them up, making slaw and all kind of good stuff, cabbage and sausage, all kind of goodies with this stuff. So, you know, for my family of 4, a head or 2 of that is plenty. Now this one here is a little better, a little bigger. Well, that's not too bad right there. That's getting close to what you might see at a real grocery store. Good little head of cabbage there. Now as far as these plants go, in the past what I've done in my traditional plots is I would come in here after we harvest everything with a tiller and just chop up all this debris into the soil. But since we're not tilling this plot, what I'm going to do, actually that my knife might not be sharp enough for that. We're going to take our pruners. I'm just going to clip these right at soil level here. I'm just let all that stuff there decompose, kind of feed the soil a little bit. So we're just going to, these stalks are thick. Come in here and clip those. Gives with a pair of loppers too, but since I was down here, I figured I'd use my pruning shears. Get this other one right here. We might have enough to make us a little sauerkraut. I've got a few heads in the refrigerator right now, and if we can get 7 or 8 of these medium-sized heads like this, might have enough to put a batch of sauerkraut in the crock. Now my second favorite variety I grew this year, and one I'll probably grow again, is this stonehead. Like I said, these heads aren't as big as we normally grow them, but just due to not feeding them quite as well, but still plenty to eat there. Little baby head right here, but we can save that. Little miniature cabbage. Get these other 2 here. That's more what I'm talking about right there. That's a little better head. You see a little bit of that silvering right there. Kind of happens when they get bit by the frost, but you just pull that back and got a nice, pretty, tightly wound head of cabbage right there. And go ahead and clip these guys off at the soil here, since we're doing no till. And doing it this way as opposed to coming in with a tiller is definitely a little slower, and you got to have a little more time to let this stuff break down, because you don't want to come in here and plant amongst all this stuff right here. But we've got some time. Probably going to plant some winter squash and pumpkins in here next. Well, we've got probably at least 2 months before we're going to plant those, so we've got time to let all this break down. These leaves will kind of hopefully shade out any weed pressure and just kind of cover the soil, break down, add some good organic matter to our no-till soil here. And then we'll still come in here before we plant and add another load of compost on top of what's already here. Now let's talk about our broccoli and our cauliflower here. Now, as opposed to the cabbage that can take a decent little frost, the broccoli and the cauliflower heads, part that we actually harvest and eat, can be kind of frost sensitive. Now I've seen cases where they can take a little frost, but I've also seen cases where I've had heads that were close to being ready to harvest, and we get a frost and I come out here and they're just mush. So you got to be really careful with those. Yesterday I looked at the weather and it said it was only supposed to get down to about 35, 36 last night. This morning, go outside to take Abram to school, and there's frost all over the ground. So I was like, ooh, this might not be good. But I don't think it was too bad. Like I said, it didn't get down to freezing temperatures. We just had that frost on the ground there. And I felt around a couple of these plants here, and the broccoli and cauliflower heads. We may have a little damage. We'll just have to see. But I think we're okay. Now we are supposed to get down to 30 later on this week, and I definitely want to get this out of here before then. So here we've got a head of green magic broccoli, and harvesting the heads of broccoli, or when to harvest the heads of broccoli, can be a little bit tricky. You can't get greedy with this stuff. And you know, you'll see a head like this and wonder, well, I believe that thing will get, you know, at least a third bigger in size. I may let it sit here a little longer. But you got to be careful. If you let it sit here too long, you'll start seeing those little yellow flowers and seed heads start to popping up, and then the broccoli tastes all grainy. It's really not that great to eat. Now this time of year, we don't have to worry about it as much because it's not that hot right now. These things are kind of slow to bolt this time of year. So we've got a little more leeway this time of year. This time of year, we mainly have to worry about those frosts. So even if the head isn't as big as we want it to be, if we know we're going to get a hard freeze, we definitely want to come in here and get it. So this head would probably get a little bit bigger, but considering I know we're going to have some freezing temps later this week, I'm going to go ahead and cut that guy right there. And that's not a bad head of broccoli right there at all. I think the broccoli, comparatively, did better than the cabbage did in this no-till plot. The broccoli really just thrives off that initial boost of fertilizer there, and it doesn't need it as continually as the cabbage does. So nice little head of broccoli there. I got some bigger ones here. I'll show you in just a minute. So here's a really nice one right here. That's kind of what I'm used to growing right there. Really good head. See a little bit of that yellowing right there. Might cut that little piece off, but a pretty nice head of broccoli right there. You know, bigger than my hand, which is kind of what we're going for. Good size. Now in the past, as soon as I harvested that main stalk, I'd go ahead and take my loppers and cut these stalks off here and clean this up. That was when we were selling these broccoli heads. Now that we're not selling them, I may leave these here and wait on some side shoot production. We'll get some little side shoots here and get a little extra harvest. Not near what we get from the big heads, but we'll get a little bit of that. But when we were selling stuff, that side shoot production wasn't substantial enough for anything to really sell, and it was better for me to get it out of here and plant something else. See, that one there is pretty average in size, but we need to go ahead and get it out of here before it gets damaged by any frost. Now I have seen where if the head is kind of small, just starting to grow, and the leaves are kind of bunched up around it a good little bit, it can tolerate a little more frost because it's kind of protected by the leaves. But once those heads get big and kind of are out in the open like that, that's when they're a little more prone to damage. So those I was just harvesting were the Green Magic broccoli, which is a solid producer for us year after year. This right here is a variety called Emerald Green broccoli, and this one's supposed to do better in the cold weather. Now comparing the two varieties, I'd say they're pretty dang close. The Green Magic may be just a hair faster maturing, but I really like this Emerald Green variety as well. I'd say they're right there about neck and neck. This head right here looks pretty good. I'll come in here and grab this guy. And like I said with the others, this one may have gotten a little bit bigger, but that right there is an acceptable size, certainly, to go ahead and grab. Here's another one right here, and I actually misspoke. This is called Emerald Crown broccoli, not Emerald Green broccoli. And this one here appears to have suffered a little frost damage. We can see right there, that's just kind of mushy right there. So we've waited a little too long on this guy. It happens. Can't have perfect timing with everything. So a little bit of mush there from some frost damage. Also, we can see some seed heads popping up right there on the outside. So we want to cut that off. Just leave that there. And we'll probably cut around that right there. The rest of this head looks pretty good. Definitely don't want to be eating that right there. So here's a perfect example of an untimely harvest. And we don't get to eat this whole head because it's going to be grainy with them seed heads. And that right there just looks kind of gross. And the third variety we trialed here is this Godzilla broccoli. And it's just a little different than the other two. Well, the other two are pretty similar. This one is a good bit different. It's a little later maturing. The heads aren't near harvestable size for most of them. There may be a couple I grabbed. But it has a really, really upright growth habit here. And that's why they call it Godzilla, because it just makes a tall, upright plant like you see here. And that does tend to protect that broccoli crown a good bit more than some of those other varieties that tend to kind of fan out a little bit. So you get nice tall upright plants on these, kind of protects that head a little bit. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but that there isn't very big, and we'll let that go. We'll just take a chance on that one there. Not a whole, that's just a bite right there is all that is. A little later variety, but I do like this upright growth habit here on this Godzilla variety. All right, we got all the broccoli heads we want to grab. Now let's talk about some cauliflower. So it's kind of the same game as far as having a timely harvest with these guys this time of year. This head right here would probably get a little bit bigger, but if we get a really hard freeze, it'll just turn this head into mush. So we kind of got to play a little bit of a game as far as, you know, making a sacrifice with a smaller harvest versus risking just losing the entire head. Now this is a variety called Minuteman, and this is our earliest maturing variety. I've got the Twister down the road here, which is a little later. And you can see the head there, it's kind of lost some of its color. It was bleached white a few days ago, but as it kind of sits in the sun a little bit, it'll get a little yellowing on there. It doesn't really affect the flavor in my opinion, just a little different color, and you know, we don't care if we're just eating these at the house. If you're selling them, you may want them to be bright white. Some people will come in here and wrap all these leaves up and tie a rubber band around them like that right there, and that will protect the heads better from freezing temps and keep them from getting that yellowing right there, keep it all bleach white. But for what we're doing, doesn't matter a whole lot. I'm going to grab this guy here, and that's just pretty average size head of cauliflower. You can see there the white parts there that were covered up by the leaves hasn't been kind of turned yellow from the sun, but this part up here, which is exposed to the sun, has that yellowing on it. So if you want them all bright white, you might want to kind of wrap them up to preserve that pretty white color there. And some varieties will wrap better or protect the head better than others. This variety here is called Twister, and the leaves kind of twist, as you can see right there from the main stalk, and they do protect the head a little bit better than the Minuteman. Now this is a little later variety than the Minuteman, so the Minuteman produces earlier, but this one here does protect the heads a little better. We've got one here, the Twister, we can probably get out of here. Not a real big head, but it'd be something to eat. A little bit of damage right there on that one, not a whole lot, still plenty to salvage. And we just like to take these things, cut them up, put some salt, pepper, olive oil on, put them in the air fryer, and they are delicious to eat that way. Just roast them in the oven or air fryer, however you want to cook them. Really good little healthy snack there. And the last thing I'm going to grab on this trip to the grocery store is some of this romaine lettuce. Now this is a variety called Braveheart, and it's a little different than the romaines I've grown in the past, like the Coastal Star or the Pear Silent. It doesn't make a super huge head, but the flavor on it is the sweetest romaine lettuce I believe I've ever had. Just got a really good sweet flavor on it. Doesn't make massive heads, but it's done pretty well. And I almost wonder, I think this one might be more well suited for some baby leaf kind of cut and come again production. You can grow it for heads, but I think you could do a good little, you know, plant a dense bed of this stuff and cut and come again with it and have some nice little baby leaf romaine. But we're going to cut these whole heads right here today and have some nice little salad. That right there, clean that up a little bit. And that's not a bad little head of lettuce. I'll take that all day long. Get us a few more here. Make a little taco salad or something like that. Another nice one right there. And one more right here. So there we go. Nice little romaine lettuce, and one of those heads right there will make a pretty decent sized salad. All right, all right, all right. We got us a decent little grocery store haul here. Some nice cauliflower, pretty good sized broccoli heads there, romaine lettuce, and a couple decent cabbages there. Good to be able to kind of walk out in your backyard, get your vegetables for the week. We'll take these inside and bag them up. And I buy those little bags like you get from the grocery store. You can buy them in rolls off Amazon. I'll put this stuff in there, tie a knot in it, poke a few holes in it, and it'll keep well enough until we eat it all. Sometimes I like to come out here and harvest a week's worth at the time and bag it up, and that way it's right there in the fridge ready to have. Now if we're getting a freeze or something, then I have to do some emergency harvesting, but this will be a lot of good veggies for the week here. So as far as the first season of my no-till plot goes, we pretty much harvested some of everything out of there at this point, with the exception of the red cabbage. And I was a little disappointed with the green cabbage on the size of those, but you know, we did get some that are decent size. I know what caused that, just didn't have enough nitrogen there. That was my fault. Lettuce did really good. Super happy with how the lettuce did, and the broccoli did really well. Cauliflower, I've grown bigger cauliflower heads before, but still did pretty well considering. So it was definitely not a complete failure. It did pretty good. Now I don't think the biology in the soil is up to where it should be yet, like most no-till people have, where the biology is so active and is really feeding the soil to the extent that you don't have to add a whole lot of extra nutrients. But I think we're getting there. I think I'm gonna have to continue adding some nitrogen fixing cover crops in there pretty frequently. So after this stuff is done, we'll come in, add a layer of compost, probably gonna plant some squash, either summer squash, or may just plant some pumpkins in here. Something that's not gonna require a whole lot of disturbance. I'll transplant the pumpkins if I put those in there, and may put them on drip tape. Probably have to do that, but besides that, the cleanup will be pretty easy. And after those grow off in spring to early summer, we'll need to put another nitrogen fixing cover crop on top of this, and probably do the same thing we did last year. Grow a cover crop in the summer, kind of into the fall a little bit, mow it down, tarp it for a little bit, and just keep adding organic matter to that soil, keep leaving it undisturbed, and hopefully over time our biology will get more and more active there, and we'll see even better results than we saw this year. So if your garden is still producing this time of year, let me know what you're harvesting. Let me know if you've had any situations where you've kind of lost some broccoli or cauliflower, or maybe something else due to some, you know, unforeseen frost that kind of snuck up on you. If you have any questions or comments about any of the things we've talked about today or any of these varieties, definitely put those below and I'll be glad to try to answer them for you. I'll put some links below to all the varieties we talked about today so you can go grab some seeds and grow them for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you did enjoy this one, check out these other two videos right here where we were working in this plot before we harvested all this stuff. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you next time.